Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. Sorry, I'm a little bit late tonight, about 10 minutes late. Apologies for that. Who have we on the stream tonight? We have Edward. Great to see you, Edward. Stu is here. Raven 1983 Witch. Great to see you. Tomaleg has become a member of Discord. That's great. Thanks for becoming a member. We have Jared Mack. Great to see you, Jared. My granddad was born in Bonn, Beanish in the parish of Drumlish. I know Drumlish in Longford. Wow. We have Colin. Great to see you, Colin. John O'Sullivan is here. Ends of the God is on. We have Ruth. Great to see you. David McGuinness. Great to have you on, David. Hope you're well. Check out the Indie Truck Davies channel. The two Davies. We have Amax C. Great to see you. We also have Bina is on. Great to see you once again, Bina. I haven't seen you in a while. We have Ava. Great to see you, Ava. Happy Friday, everyone. From a sunny Belgium. Wow, very nice. We have Chatty Rat. Great to see you. Colin. Norflinger is here. We have Freddie B. Great to see you. Von Neckenizer is on. CGM. Great to see you, CGM. Hope you're well. We also have Artie Bus. Hugh. The Freckled Pony. Roshin is on. Who else have we got? Roseanne. Great to see you, Roseanne. Alistair. Great to see you. Hope you're well. We also have Regan Elite. Great to see you, Regan Elite. Young Ralph, Gingers, Nicholas, Fearless Wolf. Great to see you, Fearless Wolf. Hope you're all up there in Scotland. We also have Daily Blase. Great to have you on. Hope you're well. I hope you're ready for next week. Isn't it next week when the Parliament reopens? I'm looking forward to your response videos to the select committees. We also have Magic. Great to see you, Magic. And so many more. Thanks for coming on, and remember to smash the like button, guys. I can't say hello to everyone because we're up to almost 200 viewers. Lefty Boater, so late, even Shorts would be proud. Apologies once again. So I hope everyone is well. I hope you had a nice week and you're ready for the weekend. Garrett, thanks so much for that super chat. The woke made Max late, you guys. Oh my god. The woke, yes. I just like Liz Truss, blame it on the woke. Not on the boogie, but on the woke. Thanks so much, Gareth. Oh my goodness. The idea that Liz Truss is coming back, or trying to make some sort of comeback, is almost as bad as another rumour that Suella Braverman probably wants to run for Prime Minister next. That's why she's positioned herself. That's why she is coming down hard on asylum seekers and, attacking the police in a sense for doing their job. So it's for being woke, of course. So there's this idea that she's positioning herself to be a future Prime Minister. I hope she loses her seat at the next election. I think a lot of Tories are going to lose their seats unless Labour really mess up. Thanks for that, Gareth. Once again, blame it on the woke. Just a summary of some of the things here, and then I'm going to get into the strikes. There's been a lot going on today. Nurses in England will go back on strike for 2 days later this month after rejecting the government's pay deal. Civil service unions in the UK have warned of a fresh wave of industrial action after the government announced that the pay rise will be limited to 4.5% to 5% in a move dismissed by union leaders as insulting. Inflation is at over 10%, and the government are saying, yeah, we'll give you 5. Between 4.5 and 5. I think actually it's probably worse than that, because I don't know if they got a pay rise. Probably didn't get a pay rise last year. So inflation is more like 20%, and the government is saying we'll give you 4.5 to 5%. Of course, it's a slap in the face. Conservative MPs with wafer-thin margins who pulled off shock victories in the 2019 election will be allowed to stand in other seats after the party designated them displaced. So, certain MPs maybe moved around into safer seats in order to save them. And somebody else will be sacrificed. This is what Boris Johnson, I believe, is attempting to do. He bought a house with cash, a mansion, and I think he tried to move there and register as an MP there, or register to run as an MP there, so that would have been a safe seat. I don't know if it's actually going to go ahead, and he may actually have to remain in Uxbridge, where he's likely to lose his seat. It's not guaranteed, but there's a good possibility he'll lose his seat there. You know, this idea, we'll just move the old guard into safe seats, but there aren't that many safe seats left. Even Jacob Rees-Mogg's seat isn't safe. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. So we need to get a new lettuce for Truss. Yes. I don't know if she'll move up to iceberg lettuce or another type. But the idea that, but this is the thing about Liz Truss. She's in America at the moment. She was in America last week, delivering a speech, and I think she was paid £100,000 for it. Look, give me 50 grand and I'll deliver just as bad a speech and talk as just as much twaddle if you want. Why the hell are people paying Liz Truss money to speak? She should be a warning. This is what you should not do. You should not put me in charge. There, give me 100 grand to explain why I shouldn't be put in charge of anything. You know, even a piss up in a brewery. Let me read some of your comments before we go on. Bill Silver is on. 1.5% lump sum last year. 1.5% rise in 2021 for CV for COVID-19, Max. 1% rise. So thanks for that, Magic, for that clarification. So it's 1.5% lump sum and 1.5% rise in 2021. And what about 2022? I don't know if they got anything, or if it's even 1.5, but if inflation was over 10%, they lost money again. So this thing that you're hearing a lot about is when it comes to junior doctors is this 35% pay rise. It's not, of course, it's not a pay rise, it's pay restoration, because they've lost so much over the last number of years. They would like to have it restored. American lettuce. Stu, hey Max, thanks for the pharmacy video earlier. Was very interesting, and I hope things are not too bad that medications run out. I really hope that's not the case. I really hope that medications don't run out. I also went to my local pharmacy here, and I asked them about this, and they said that there are shortages of some medicines like ibuprofen and I think some antibiotics. So there is a shortage, you know, in Europe and around the world, I think, for certain medicines. But the problem, of course, with Brexit, or the problem for the UK is because of Brexit, it makes it more difficult. So what's important is that people don't hoard. And that, remember, we saw at the beginning of the pandemic, people hoarding toilet paper and stuff like that. That's one problem. But hoarding medicine is a really serious issue. And I really hope that doesn't take place. And whatever it takes, medicine is brought in. I don't think medicines are going to run out. But as we saw, I think a different problem is going to occur where it's going to be difficult to get to your local pharmacy because a lot of the pharmacies are closing down because the government is not providing them with the support they need. We saw in the report from, I believe it was Channel 4, or maybe it was the BBC, or maybe it was Sky News, I don't remember, but it was one of the reports there, how the pharmacies are on the, you know, on the edge. A lot of them can't survive because they're not receiving enough money from the state for the medicines. So they are closing down, and that will mean that people will have to travel further to get to get their medicines. And if you have more if you have more and more people having to travel to the one pharmacy, it's going to create longer queues, and you're going to see more shortages. So people will have to book medication in advance, and you know it shouldn't be happening. Thanks to we have Channel 4, a different bias. Wow, great to see one. Phil, hope you're well. Alexis, thanks so much for that super chat. Brexit is a short. It's getting worse and worse. That's the problem with Brexit. It just gets worse and worse, and there is no sign of it getting any better. So we do hope that when Labour gets in, that they're going to start, realigning with the EU. And I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to try and break down whatever barriers, try and break down as many of these barriers as they can. But it's going to take time. Great to see Phil on the stream. I hope you're well tonight. And do check out the new channel that Phil has been part of, and Graham Hughes is part of as well. Maybe someone one of the moderators can post the link. Really good channel. Check it out. Anyway, let's move on. This is about. So we'll stick with the strikes. Tory former Health Minister Dan Poulter urges government to improve pay after nurses offer to nurses. Steve Barclay has been urged by Tory MP who has also practiced as an NHS hospital doctor to reopen negotiations and boost the pay offered to nurses in light of the RCN ballot. So Dan, a former health minister, told The Guardian it was clear that many NHS staff a pay increase which is below the cost of living and below pay increases made to workers in the private sector was not enough. He voiced hope that the government listens to the voices of nursing, leaves the current offer on the table and improves upon it. Given fears that the impact of the 48-hour walkout by the RCN across England later this month, Poulter warned that the NHS cannot ensure months more of industrial action. He added, from a healthcare economics perspective, it would be better to improve on the current deal and ensure the nurses stay working in the NHS rather than leaving for more lucrative private healthcare jobs or to earn money by working as agency staff. And this is a huge problem, that many nurses are leaving because they can't afford to pay the bills or to buy food, to put food on the table, and they're looking for other jobs in the private sector. And for every nurse that you lose, it doubles the workload, of course, for the staff that remain, and that makes it more difficult for the NHS to hold on to those staff as well. What needs to be done is that need to improve the pay offer. As I said before, what's the point in having a government if it doesn't invest in education and healthcare? What is the point of it? And for the Tories, it's about offloading responsibility onto the private sector, pushing more and more patients into private care. And of course, not everyone can afford that. And people who can't afford it, what happens to them? And it's really annoying. The other day, I saw a clip with Ian Dale from LBC. I got into a bit of a discussion with him, a bit of an argy-bargy with him over on Twitter. And it was one of these guests he had on who was an editor, or junior editor, or a commentator, a columnist for The Spectator, the right-wing Spectator, pro-Tory journal, magazine. And she was talking about how the NHS is broken and we need to have something like, she didn't say the American model because I think she didn't want to give away the game too much, but she said, we should have something like the French model or the German model. Yes, but the French and the Germans, raise taxes in order to pay for healthcare. And when they rely on the private sector, it's highly regulated. So there is public-private partnership, but it's highly regulated, and they increase taxation in order to pay for healthcare. But these libertarians that are invited on to the likes of LBC and Talk TV and GB News, what they're trying to sell is, we can do it with the private sector, we can copy them, but we don't need to increase taxes, we don't need to increase regulations. We can actually reduce regulation. So in a sense, they're trying to sell you a German or French model, but in reality, they're trying to push an American-style healthcare system where, as you know, most people know this, if you don't have health insurance, you're frigged. We've heard so many times of people having an accident and telling people, don't call an ambulance because I'm not covered. My insurance doesn't cover it. Or it doesn't cover in this area or in this network. And people, one of the, I think it's, if it's not the highest, it's one of the highest, or the biggest reasons for people to go bankrupt in the US is because of medical bills. You know, how many people go bankrupt because of medical bills in the UK or in Europe? I don't think it's actually happening. I don't think it has actually ever happened. But in the US, it's a common reason for people to go bankrupt. Hope GB News and Talk have to merge, and they can be a left-leaning channel on Freeview. Mark T, great to see you on the stream. Just more on that story of the RCN. RCN announces new 48-hour nursing strike from the 30th of April after members vote to reject pay offer by 54%. So it says here, the Royal College of Nursing announced that its members will walk out for 48 hours from 8 p.m. on the 30th of April without any derogations, which means that nursing staff working in emergency departments, intensive care units and cancer care will be taking industrial action for the first time. This is really concerning, of course, but the responsibility has to be laid at the Health Secretary's feet, because he is ultimately responsible here. Yes, check out Labour Social. Sorry, and we have a link in the chat. That's great. Thanks so much, Killer. The escalation followed a 54% vote on to reject an offer of 5% pay rise this year and a cash payment for last year. The turnout among RCN members employed on NHS agenda for change contracts in England was 61%. So the majority, a clear majority there. A good turnout, I should say. The move followed an earlier announcement by Unison that its NHS members have accepted the same offer by 74% on a turnout of 53%. Unison head of Health Sarah Gorton said the vote will not solve the staffing emergency in the NHS. RCN General Secretary Pat Cullen has written to Health Secretary Steve Barclay to seek urgent reopening of talks with the government. Once again, people will die, unfortunately, sadly, but this could have been avoided. You know, you had this idea that, yeah, we're just going to pay nurses 5%, when the reality is that inflation is double that. How are people supposed to survive? They're struggling at the moment. Inflation is at over 10%. How are they supposed to pay the bills? How are they supposed to get by? And this, once again, this idea that, you know, if people are being offered more money in the private sector, you can't hold it against them for going to the private sector for better pay and also better conditions. I think it was Sky News interviewed somebody who was a nurse in Australia, and she was talking about how it's not just the pay is better, but also how staff are treated. You're respected. And unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. Before they leave. So they say, yeah, I can't work all these hours. And there are restrictions in Australia on how many hours nurses can work. And junior doctors, I think, as well. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Basic private health insurance in the UK is 5,000. My God. How are people supposed to pay that? This is the model that, you know, the far right within the Conservative Party want to go with. They want the American style healthcare system, where if you have money you can survive. If you don't, well, there may be a community hospital that will take you in. You know, I don't know if I told you guys this story, but I remember many years ago, I was speaking to an Italian guy here, and he told me about his trip to the US. I think it was to San Francisco many years ago. It was probably over 10 years ago. But he told me about how he got a job working at the university, and he was going to work one day by bicycle, and he was hit by a car. And after 10-15 minutes, arrived an ambulance, and the paramedic asked him, what type of health insurance do you have? And I don't remember what type of insurance he had, or if he had any insurance. And they said, well, if you don't, we're not going to take you to the good hospital. We'll take you either to a middling hospital, or we'll take you to the community hospital. And, the community hospital, your chances are 50-50. So he didn't want to die. So I think his parents helped him out, and they managed to send him some money or whatever. And but he was taken to he agreed to go to the middling hospital, and eventually he was released. But I don't know how much he paid. But the idea that when you have an accident and somebody asks you, which hospital do you want to go to, is quite shocking. You would imagine the nearest one, the best one. Thanks so much, Alistair. It's we sort of look at this and read these horror stories and think, well, it's not going to happen here. But this is exactly what the small government Tories actually want to implement. Sticking with strikes, this is an interesting story here. Amazon workers go on strike in Coventry. Hundreds of workers at the online retailer Amazon will launch a strike this weekend in a long-running dispute over pay. Members of the GMB union at the company's Coventry Fulfilment Centre will walk out on Sunday for 3 days. Further strikes are planned from April the 21st to 23rd. Amanda Gearing, GMB senior organiser, said GMB members are worth more and will not accept a pay rise of pennies from one of the world's largest corporations. With strike action in Coventry escalating and ballots underway in five further Amazon depots, this could fast become a summer of chaos, strike chaos at Amazon. Amazon said the minimum starting pay for its employees had increased to between £11 and £12 an hour, depending on location. Once again, £11 to £12 an hour. How are people supposed to survive on that? Considering that the work at the Amazon fulfillment center is pretty grim. We've heard all these stories about people not being able to go to bathrooms, not being able to, in some cases, people peeing in bottles because of the strict regime of not, if you go to the bathroom, a number of times a day, you could have some, marks against you, and you could end up losing your job over that. This was a report done by, I think it was Channel 4 News some years ago. I hope the situation has improved, but I imagine it hasn't all that much. So it's not just pay, but also conditions are pretty bad there. A statement said, over the past 7 months, our minimum starting pay has risen by 10% and by more than 37% since 2018. We also work hard to provide great benefits, a positive work environment, and excellent career opportunities. I wonder what those are. So just on this story from Sky News about the strikes.
Well, the General Secretary of the FDA Union, Dave Penman, joins me live now. Mr. Penman, thank you so much for talking to us. So you are considering a national ballot for industrial action, are you?
Yes. I mean, what we were expecting following the negotiations in health and education was the start of a negotiating process in the civil service. That's what we were promised by the Minister. And instead, in the space of 12 hours, we've had a take it or leave it offer of 4.5% put to civil servants. They just announced that after telling us this morning in a meeting, at least did the courtesy to tell us in advance, with no indication of any additional payment to cover.
Just want to say something here that really annoys me is you'll hear the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg and other friends of his on GB News and Talk TV who'll run down the public service because they believe they can get away with it. They paint them as lazy. Oh, look at these people working from home. What do? They're just pen pushers. They're not producing anything. And, they know that they can't get away with it too much when it comes to junior doctors or nurses because they understand that the public see them, maybe, you know, on a daily basis, or they have a general idea of what they do. But civil servants, they don't understand what they do, and they see them as surplus. They see them as lazy. They see them as entitled. And of course they're not. They're a fundamental part of a functioning society, and they need to be respected. And of course they are struggling with the cost of living too.
Of the cost of living rises for last year, which has been a feature in both education and health, as you've seen there. So civil servants, once again, getting significantly poorer pay offer than anywhere else.
Thanks, Magic. Yes, 10% sounds a lot until you find out it's £1 extra. I like Amazon. Don't mention that the NMW forced increase, not a voluntary increase. National minimum wage, sorry. That the national minimum wage forced increase was not a voluntary increase. There we go. So it was not like, yeah, we're going to pay you more. Why? Because we care? Or is it because you have to? Yeah, because we care. Believe us. No, because you have to, because it's the national minimum wage. I think it's in Denmark where they don't actually have a minimum wage because they don't need a minimum wage. People are paid, you know. I remember there was a statistic comparing Denmark and a McDonald's in Denmark and a McDonald's in the United States. When there was a push for $15 an hour in the United States, McDonald's responded by saying, no, we can't afford that. It would cost a huge amount of money. It works out at like something like an extra cent or 2 cents on every burger, something like that. But they pay more than that, and they provide holiday pay and sick pay, which they don't provide in the US, but they provide that in Denmark. So if they can do it in Denmark, they pay better and provide better conditions. Why can't they do the same in the US? So you'll find American companies who will say in the US, no, we can't do this because, you know, we couldn't afford it. While when they're constricted by the law, when they're forced by the law to provide better services, better working conditions and pay for their employees in Europe, they follow it. Otherwise, they'll be fined or worse.
Else in the public sector.
To be clear, though, this doesn't actually affect senior civil service, does it? The senior civil service.
So the senior civil servants are covered by a review body, but the government has made clear in the past, including last year, that they would not want to see senior civil servants get pay rises that went beyond what happened to those below the senior civil service. So it has an impact on the senior civil service as well, as it essentially sets a bar. Certainly that's how the government's approached it in the past, and sets a kind of going rate for how things are going to be dealt with. But it's just extraordinary events of the last 12 hours. I mean, we've been waiting patiently, having talks about talks, to suddenly have the rug pulled from under our feet. No enhanced negotiations is what we were promised. No payment in compensation for the cost of living over the last year, where many of these disputes have been about, despite that clearly being indicated in the past. And a quite frankly embarrassing meeting with the Minister today, who had no answers to the questions of why civil servants have been treated so significantly worse than the rest of the public sector.
Can you just tell us a bit more? You did meet with the Minister for the Cabinet Office this morning, as you've said. Why was that embarrassing, and what exactly was said in that meeting?
Yeah, it was with Jeremy Quinn. I have some sympathy for him. I think I suspect these are decisions that have been taken elsewhere. He's the one that talked about trying to ensure that the civil service wasn't the poor relation of the public sector when we've met him in the past, though that's exactly what's happened. He could not answer why there's no negotiations around this, why the promise of talks didn't even begin, and they're just publishing a pay remit for the civil service, and he couldn't explain why civil servants are not receiving the sort of non-consolidated one-off payment that is applying elsewhere in the public sector. And I said to him, as a government minister, he has an obligation to his employees, civil servants, to explain that, to answer that. Why are you treating them so different from everywhere else in the public?
If you want a functioning society, you need civil servants. I know people don't seem to understand, but if you want a functioning society, if you want a functioning government, you need the civil servants. And if, once again, like nurses or junior doctors, if you don't pay them enough, they're going to go somewhere else. And that offloads the responsibility, offloads the workload onto the existing staff. And we've seen already how, people like Jacob Rees-Mogg wants to cut the public service even more. They're talking about firing 80,000 employees. I don't know how many they've actually gone through with. But it's, I say we all chip in for some eggs for the Tories. But once again, it's this idea of painting the civil service as something negative, as wasteful, as lazy. And then this allows the government to cut back on this, reducing the size of government and then allowing the private sector to take over. It's not just about privatization within the NHS, privatization everywhere. Okay, guys, I want to move on from that. As we know, Joe Biden was in Ireland this week. I think he's still there, actually. And there was a hope that it would put pressure. Joe Biden would put pressure on the DUP to get back into power sharing with Sinn Féin, to restore the Northern Ireland executive. And, well, it doesn't seem to be going very well. It says here, DUP boycott of Stormont only proves Sinn Féin's point that Northern Ireland's failed political entity, says leading unionist. Wow. Freckle Punny, thanks so much for that super chat. The right attack striking doctors who are making things worse for patients. Yet say bugger all when all things are bad. Bugger all when things are bad for many patients without the strikes. Yes, and this was a wonderful point that was raised. Thanks so much, Freckle Punny. This was a wonderful point raised by Mick Lynch back during the beginning of the RMT strikes, when they were talking about, you're making life a misery for people who need to use the public services, the trains in this particular case. And his response was perfect. He said, it's crap most of the time because the government don't invest in it. Us going on strike isn't going to make much difference. This idea that, because of you going on strike, people will leave, will rely on other forms of transport. They'll abandon public transport. He says, no, it's not because of us going on strike. It's because of bad work practices, because of very high fares, because of unreliable services. That's why people are leaving, and nothing to do with the strike. And it's the same thing, people are dying because of Tory cuts, because of austerity, because of this perversion for privatization. Not because of, because people are going to die also because nurses and doctors are on strike. But what is the alternative? To continue as things are? To see doctors and nurses leave because of pay and conditions, because to watch patients die because they're on waiting lists. I think it's something like 7.8 million people, or even more than that, are on the waiting list now. My only fear about when the Tories actually leave power is they're going to leave an absolute mess to the Labour Party, and when Labour take over, they're going to have to make some very difficult choices, and they're going to be very unpopular for that. And the waiting list, you're not going to bring down the waiting list within one parliament. And of course, the Tories are going to point the finger and go, see, the waiting list hasn't dropped. Look at how much, they're spending on, they've cut public services, or look at how much they haven't invested in the public sector. Look how many jobs they haven't created. Look at the problems of Brexit. Maybe they'll even be criticising Brexit at that stage. But they'll, of course, leave a disaster, allow Labour to take over. Labour will struggle to resolve a lot of these problems, at least in the first parliament. And the Tories will point the finger at, oh, look at they're failing. Anyway, it's like somebody, going out and, slashing your tires, and then you're trying to get to work and you're moving really slowly, and they're pointing the finger at, look how you're going to be late for work because your tires are slashed. Anyway, one of the architects of the Good Friday Agreement, Ulster Unionist peer Lord MP, Reg MP, has said the DUP must face up to the new realities and return to power sharing in Northern Ireland. In a statement, MP, and I'm very having trouble read. I know the guy, Reg MP. He's been around for a long time. MP, who worked alongside David Trimble in the UUP negotiating team 25 years ago, said the DUP boycott of Stormont has failed. Their 7 tests are hardly mentioned anymore because they have not been met. MP said Brexit was disastrously negotiated, but that the DUP had got to be pragmatic and get back into government. Pragmatic and the DUP don't go in the same phrase. Okay, you can't put the two things together. To proceed with the continuing boycott of power sharing makes no sense. Making Stormont and Northern Ireland not work has to be the very opposite of what is pro-unionist, pro-union interests. Is in pro-union interests. Okay. Sinn Féin have long argued that Northern Ireland is a failed political entity. What is the logic behind any unionist action that helps prove Sinn Féin's point? And he's correct. And this is something that I've been banging my head against for a long time. Why are unionists not promoting the Northern Ireland Protocol, the Windsor Framework? Think about it for a moment. What does the Northern Ireland Protocol achieve? It allows, and you can ask the Prime Minister himself, it gives Northern Ireland a unique selling point. It's part of the single market when it comes to goods, and it's part of the internal market, the UK internal market. Now, if Northern Ireland became part of a united Ireland, it would lose that benefit. Now, it could be argued whether it's all that beneficial at the moment. Would it be in a better position economically if it was part of a united Ireland? We can argue about that. We can discuss that and debate it. But at the moment, unionists should be singing the praises of the Northern Ireland Protocol. And I'm not talking about from a partisan point of view. I think I believe in a united Ireland. I think it's the best outcome. But if I was a unionist, I'd be singing the praises of the Northern Ireland Protocol. See, because if we join a united Ireland, we're going to lose this benefit. And instead, you have the DUP trying to get rid of the protocol. They don't think in any way. I was going to say think straight, but they don't think at all. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Example of how vital civil servants are. Northern Ireland, DUP, Sinn Féin crashed the executive. Civil servants pick up the slack. Civil servants kept Northern Ireland running for years. Yes, 100% correct there, Gareth. And thanks for that super chat. It's correct. The executive, the politicians were sitting on their hands, in particular the DUP, and the civil servants were running the country. Of course, they can't make executive decisions because they need the politicians to do that. But in the date, picking up making sure that rubbish is collected, or that the NHS is able to recruit the staff or try and recruit the staff it needs, that's the civil service. But the decisions on budgets and the big questions that need to be answered, you need the politicians in charge. You need the politicians there. And if they're not, then it's decided by Westminster. And what's the point in having an executive if Westminster decides? What's the point in having any devolved power if Westminster decides? And we sort of look at, well, isn't it? It's great that Westminster is deciding because the DUP are going to make bad decisions, but this is in conflict with the Good Friday Agreement. The Good Friday Agreement is about having an executive. It's about having power shared between the two communities. It's better for democracy. And the British government don't want to be making these decisions. They understand the problems related to that. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Pragmatism is the political ideology of the IRA. Yes. Oh my goodness, yeah, the DUP. Oh my goodness. We hope that they will wake up and smell the coffee, realize what a mess that they're in, but instead they just keep digging. These 7 tests, these tests have not been met. And the more they dig their heels in and say, no, never, 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 no, no, it makes them look ridiculous. And the UK government will move ahead without them. And I've said this before, what Rishi Sunak should be doing is, okay, I'm going to push legislation into Northern Ireland that really upsets the DUP and embarrasses them and shows them up to be the fools that they are. He could do that instead of bribing them. David McInnes, thanks so much for that super chat. They won't release the figures on how many have died due to the benefit sanctions. It's like, I presume you're talking about the Department of Work and Pensions. When I hear about how, I'm not comparing the two, but you hear about from Brexiteers in particular about how many people the IRA killed during the Troubles, and I think about but how many people have the Tories killed through austerity? We're talking hundreds of thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of people. Because of their policies. These were political decisions. We're going to cut public services. We're going to make it more difficult for people to survive. How many people have you heard about who have been sanctioned? People on universal credit who were sanctioned and then were put into destitution. And then they became a statistic. It's depressing. It's really sad that, people who rely on the government to provide a social safety net, and the Tories over the last 13 years have not just removed the social net, they have burnt it. Like a 50 quid note in front of a homeless person by somebody like Boris Johnson. And they think that they're doing something right. Thanks, David. We have Gareth once again. Thanks so much, Gareth. Well, oh my man's a pragma with the gun. Oh my goodness, Gareth, you're amazing. Always making me laugh. Actually, 600,000 plus max and climbing. 600,000. I thought it was like a few 100,000, but it's I'm not saying every Tory is the same, but I imagine many Tories are looking at that and going, yeah, we've succeeded. It's poor people dying. If it's poor people dying with them, we don't give a crap. Because poor people generally don't vote for us, or if they do, they definitely don't donate to us. If you donate to the party, then you're going to be looked after. The best money democracy can buy. Anyway, moving on, sort of sticking with the DUP in a sense. Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister says the DUP leader Arlene Foster wrong to say Joe Biden hates the UK. So Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister Micheál Martin has criticised remarks by the former DUP leader and former Northern Ireland First Minister Arlene Foster, who says Joe Biden hates the UK. He said she was wrong, declaring that her remarks about the US president were misplaced. This is the thing about the DUP, how to make friends and influence people. He said it was wrong, declaring that her remarks about the US president were misplaced and he doesn't hate anyone, he told RT's This Morning show. I'm very surprised by that comment. The one word that you would not associate with Joe Biden is the word hate. He's the antithesis of that. He's the opposite of that. He always speaks about dignity of every human person. He's more love than hate by a country mile. Look, Joe Biden is, when it comes to Northern Ireland, I think he's a good guy. He cares about peace on the island of Ireland. He cares about peace in Northern Ireland. He's not a saint, okay? If you look at Joe Biden's history, Joe Biden was responsible for some pretty terrible policies in the United States when he was a senator. I really don't like this idea that we, worship these people. Joe Biden, when it comes to Ireland, yes, great guy, doing wonderful things for Ireland. But there are minority communities in the United States who have suffered because of policies that Joe Biden has either pushed through the Senate or has supported as a politician. There was one like things when it comes to poverty or African Americans, they have suffered as a result of some of Joe Biden's policies. Things like even things like credit card debt, allowing credit card companies to increase their rates at extortionate rates. He has supported that because I believe he was the senator for Delaware. I believe it is the case. And Delaware is the center for credit card companies. So, there is a level of corruption there that goes on. So, we tend to look at sometimes the politicians on the outside as, well, they're wonderful people. But in their own country, they're not as popular. And then we need to understand why. Anyway, Joe Biden has spoken about the importance of treating everyone with dignity. Each of the 3 speeches has already given on his 4-day trip to the island of Ireland. Martin said, I think that what was wrong, that was a wrong comment by Arlene. In fact, he often references his British heritage as well, in terms of his uncle who had been involved in the British Navy. And I think he gave a personal anecdote about that. So I think that it was misplaced. He's not that type of person. Look, Joe Biden doesn't hate the United Kingdom. He doesn't understand why people in Britain voted for Brexit, for example. And when it comes to peace on the island of Ireland, the Unionists when the Unionists meet with Joe Biden, they have to present a better case than whatever is being presented by the likes of the DUP. So the DUP are not pragmatic. The DUP are not diplomatic. So whenever the DUP are speaking to people like Joe Biden or Republicans or Democrats in the US, they probably speak as if, they probably have the same tone as they do in Northern Ireland. Aggressive, egotistic, arrogant. All of these are, this is the sort of requirement if you want to be a member of the DUP. Don't understand politics, Tom Malik. Yes, that's it. Thanks so much for that super chat. Yeah, they don't understand politics. Perfect. That is the perfect acronym for the DUP. There's also the DUB, which is don't understand Brexit. You could apply that to the DUP as well. So guys, we're about halfway through the stream, so I just want to take a short break, comedy moment, and we'll be back in just a jiffy with more serious stuff. Hope you enjoy this.
Colin from Portsmouth is on the line. Hello, Colin.
I am disgusted, Anthony. Absolutely disgusted. The King's coronation's coming up, which is supposed to be a joyous occasion, but several times a day, the mere thought of it is making me physically sick.
Well, patriotic sick is the best type of sick, Colin. Red, white and blue.
Bloody Markle. She's going to swan in, slap William and Kate about the face with her sheer affronting presence, and lay a metaphorical Yankee turd at Camilla's feet.
Well, Colin, I'll stop you there. You'll be pleased with this. She's not going. Meghan Markle's not going. She's not going,
what?
Colin.
She said no after all they've done for her. She's blown the whole family a giant transatlantic raspberry there, and I bet Harry will make a documentary out of it and charge him for the royalties. Nah! Don't want to spat on the cat now. Thank you, Meghan bloody
What
Markle.
do you want, Colin? I mean, she's damned if she does and she's damned if she doesn't.
I want a Schrodinger's Markle, that's what I want.
Right.
Where it can never be truly known whether she's in or out of the coronation.
You want her to be both simultaneously there and not there, Colin. That will make you happy.
Is that too much to ask? It's the least she can do with all that taxpayers' money we've given her.
Yeah.
I'm begging you, do not make King Prince Charles cry on his big day by either turning up or not turning up. Anyway, mate, thanks for having me on. Love to the family.
Love to the family, Colin. Love to the royal family.
How do I delete my search history?
Just you.
Oh my god! But it's true. It's so true. If you look at GB News or Talk TV or whatever, they're angry with Meghan. Oh, my goodness, Meghan going to the coronation. How dare she upset the apple cart? How dare she make it about her? And then she doesn't go. How dare she not go? It's just insane. And I think Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have been wonderful for these grifters. They were like, now there's something we can talk about 24/7 and get hundreds of thousands of views on our YouTube videos or on Twitter videos or whatever, on TikTok, about us ranting and raving about Meghan Markle. And all these royal correspondents or royal experts that they bring on. Like, what the hell is a royal expert? Anyway, look, when it comes to Harry and Meghan, I said before, leave them alone. They want to live a normal life. When I think about Harry, I think he's somebody who lost his mother because of the paparazzi, because of these scumbags in the media. Chasing after her, down a tunnel in Paris that night because they wanted to get a picture of her. These people have blood on their hands. And you can imagine Harry when he thinks about, okay, my wife, I don't want to lose her. I don't want these people hounding her day in and day out. And, the same thing happening. So this is why I believe he said, I'm disconnecting myself from the royal family. I don't believe in it anymore. It's a scam. Or I want to protect my family. My family is more important than the publicity. And this sort of whatever. Anyway, Clive Lewis urges Keir Starmer to pledge to reduce size and cost of royal family. I think, is this a vote winner? Maybe. Keir Starmer has, we'll see. Keir Starmer has been urged by the leading Republican campaigner and former shadow cabinet minister to pledge to reduce the size and cost of the royal family as a symbol of his vision for a renewed Britain. With King Charles's coronation less than a month away, the Labour leader, and can you imagine what this is going to be like? How long is it going to go on for? Is it 10 days? Or I don't know, how long is the coronation itself should last just a few minutes, but how long is it going to go on for? The BBC are going to, oh my goodness, it's going to be terrible. Anyway, less than a month away, the Labour leader was challenged by Clive Lewis and Clive Lewis is a wonderful politician. It'd be great to see him as a future leader of the Labour Party, to make a stand and embrace the change symbolised by the crowning of a new monarch. And an effort to paint the party as more patriotic, Starmer has been strongly supportive of the king. Like, how does this make you patriotic? I've said before, patriotism should be about caring for your fellow man, woman and child. Patriotism is about getting rid of food banks, making sure that people get better pay and conditions, that people are lifted out of poverty, that poverty is eliminated. That's patriotism. People who work to end poverty, they are true patriots. Not, look at my flag, it's bigger than yours. Anyway, Lewis and Starmer had made clear that he would uphold the institution of the monarchy. Writing in The Guardian, the Norwich South MP and former Shadow Defence Secretary said Labour would do well to take this opportunity to define the kind of reforming government it would be. After all, a constant of Starmer's leadership has been the absence of a strong idea on what he and what the party stands for. What they call in the US the vision thing. We don't have a vision. With the general election looming, time is running out. What better way to define himself than to propose reform for the archaic institution? Once again, this is something I would support, but I don't know if people in Britain would support this. See, I think a big problem is that people seem to look at the royal family as, it's King Charles and Camilla and Harry and William and a few those other people, I don't remember their names. And that's it. But in reality, of course, that's not it. It expands very much in all directions. And there are thousands of people who are part of the family and who live off the state, either directly or indirectly, and benefit from their titles. So, if you have a company and you stick on a non-executive director or a member of the board who has a title, that's going to help your company. It's not that they actually have any skills, it's just that they have a title and that can be used for connections. Why do they have the title? Well, because their dad had it, or mum had it. So it's not based on, merit or anything like that. It's based on blood. And, this is not good for society because you want social mobility. You want a society where people can, start off with nothing and become successful. But there is a sort of ceiling. There's both a floor and a ceiling. Like if you're a member of the royal family, you'll never fall down to working class status. You're protected. And, you know, in some cases, people can never become members of the upper class because of your, I don't know, your accent or where you came from, your postcode, things like that will keep you out. So should Keir Starmer be campaigning for or be presenting some sort of reform? Yes, I would support that. But I don't know if the country would. And it probably not be something to present before, to push too much before the coronation. It's probably better to talk about it after the coronation. And then people will look back and say, was it worth spending like £100 million on this or whatever it's going to cost? Not my king, Alistair. My father was a wit. I'm a half-wit. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? A true patriot does not accept injustice for his countrymen. Well said, Ernest. Yes. Prince Nunziant has just won hide and seek champ 5 years in a row. When asked, he said, "No sweat." Well said, Ian. Biggest welfare family living in castles, mansions, and palaces on massive cottage. Yeah, I remember. Was it Prince William? Is it has a cottage, but not. It's not what the type of cottage you would imagine. It's time for a republic. I understand, and I don't know if Phil is still on, and Phil made some very valid points about the role of the royal family, that they're or the role of the monarch, that it takes the sort of politics out of the role. You know, if you have a president, it's more political. If you have a king or a queen, it's viewed as less political, and they can be neutral on many things. Well, a president, if they take sides, which was a concern that many people had for Charles, but Charles has sort of stepped aside. But then, my argument against that would be probably that, during desperate times, you need somebody to step up and say, this, I have to think about the people. I have to think about what's right for the people. But I think this is a debate that's going to go on for a long time. Anyway, moving on, just on the issue of the election, well, some pretty horrible stories coming through about, and Phil actually covered it, I think it was either today or yesterday, about the election and voter ID. Anyway, it says here, voters in East Midlands more than 5 times likely to lack photo ID as voters in Southeast polls suggests. So if you're in the Midlands, you're less likely to have voter ID than if you're in the Southeast. I wonder why in the Southeast people are more likely to have voter ID. Anyone wanting to vote in the local elections in England next month will, for the first time, have to provide photo ID. The government has repeatedly dismissed claims that the new law will lead to people being disenfranchised. But new polling by Omnius for Byline Times suggests the impact could be more significant than ministers accept. The polling suggests that there is significant variation in what different age groups know about the new rules. In his write-up, Joshua Mortimer from Byline Times says, while 22% of people across England are unaware of the new rules, new ID rules, awareness of the new rules is even lower among younger voters, with 35% of those under 40 across Great Britain unaware of the new voter ID requirements, compared to only 20% of those over 40. Voters in the Yorkshire and Humber region and in the northeast of England are amongst the most in the dark, with a quarter unaware of the ID requirement. My God, 40%, so 20%. So voters in the were the most in the dark. Jesus, like this. So more and more people are going to go to vote, and they'll be like, "Oh, where's your ID? What ID? Your voter ID? I don't have voter ID. Okay, then you have to go back home." The polling also suggests considerable regional variation in the proportion of people who possess photo ID. Perhaps most worrying, however, is the scale of the potential disenfranchisement. 1 in 8, 13% of adults in England don't own a photo ID, a figure that is roughly the same across Britain. However, the number is much larger is much lower in the largest Tory voting southeast at just 4%, a stark 23%. This is like, just think about it for a moment. If you have a passport, you're more likely, you're more likely to be able to, you're more likely to be middle class. If you're more likely to be middle class, you're more likely to vote for the Tories. So, for example, a photo ID, a passport, is going to be, I imagine, is valid voter ID. So, what the Tories are doing is they understand, okay, instead of allowing lots of people to come out and vote, if we restrict it to people who are more likely to vote for us, then we win. We make it more difficult for people who can't vote or who are less likely to vote for us, then we win. May 4th, drive general election, gerrymandering of voters. I think they've done a lot of the gerrymandering already when it comes to the redrawing of the boundaries. But definitely, thanks so much, Alistair. But it's very concerning. People will turn up to vote and they'll be turned away because they don't have the right ID. But, if you're in the southeast and you're middle class, you're more likely to travel, you're more likely to have a passport, and you'll turn up with your passport. You say, which ID? Well, I don't know, but I've heard something about ID. Well, then I'll take my passport. That's the best form of ID. It has my picture in it. And they're going to be the people who vote. And, you're going to have a society where it's almost like a poll tax. It's almost like if you want to vote, you have to pay. Or you pay in some way. If the government really cared about, voter ID in a real sense, what they would do is they would issue free voter ID. You said this is a voter ID card, and it's produced for free, so you don't have to pay for it, and everyone would get it. Anyway, moving on. Before I continue, let me read some of your comments. Where's your constitution? What constitution? Yes, Britain doesn't have a codified constitution. Might just start once. I've paid off my mortgage. Not sure what that's about, Vicky. This is the thin edge of the wedge for everyone to have it. Then it can be monitored. Couldn't wash a dog with you to tap water. I'm not sure what that's about. I've been reading all of the comments. I thought that the Brits were against ID. We carry an ID at all times. When it comes to voting in Belgium, you receive an invitation from the council and you present this along with your ID. Yeah, the same in Italy. Before the vote, you get a card through the post. It's your voting card, and then you turn up at the ballot station. And you present the voting, you vote your voter card and your ID, and everyone here in Italy has an ID. I think you get one when you're. It's not 18; it's actually below 18. I think if you're like 12 or something, you get an ID. So it's and nobody has a problem with ID here in Italy. So, but in the UK and in Ireland, nobody has ID. It's not part of the culture. So you can't afford to go abroad. Do you own a car? Oh, you don't because of the suppressed wages. Don't take my student card or bus pass. No. And well said, Magic. And this is another problem that the over 60s bus pass, I think, our Oyster card is valid ID, but a student Oyster card is not valid ID. So which are more likely to vote for the Conservatives? Students or people over the age of 60 or 65. Thanks, Magic. Yeah, it's about making it more and more difficult for people who need the government to look out for them. If you're rich, you don't care about a social safety net. You don't care that much about a publicly run NHS because you can afford to avoid the government services. And then if these are the people who are voting, are they going to vote for more public services, more investment in public services? Of course not. Thanks so much, Magic. Gareth, once again, thanks so much, Gareth. Can anyone imagine Prince Andrew picking the coronation tunes? Whoa, we're going to California. No, Philia? What's that? Whoa, Epstein Island. Whoa, we're going to have a party with women I've never seen. Oh, God. Oh, my goodness. I should be able to sing, but I can't sing, and I better not sing, or people would leave the channel straight away. Thanks so much, Gareth. Yes. Let's hope that Prince Andrew doesn't choose the music. Could be something like Gary Glitter, you know. This Ruth, thank you so much for the super chat. This is the opportunity to get free voter ID. I really hope that what this doesn't succeed. This plan to disenfranchise people doesn't succeed. That people turn up. You know, if they're turned away, they go back home, they get another form of ID that is valid, and they take it to the polling station. Or that people get informed, because there's not much time left. So I hope people are getting informed about the ID they need. And I think it's important that political parties like the Labour Party, Liberal Democrats, the Greens, the SNP inform voters. The Tories are not going to inform voters, or they're going to misinform voters. So I think it's important that the opposition parties inform voters about this is what you need. Make sure you get it done. We'll help you out if we can. You know, of course we can't do it on your behalf, but you know, like the Democrats in the US during the last election or the one before. You know, the communities would organize buses to take people to polling stations, because in some cases the polling stations had been closed down in their area and they had to go to one further afield. And you know, if you're on minimum wage, or if you're on welfare, you can't afford to spend the money to go and vote. And this is a type of poll tax once again. It's about making it more and more difficult for people who need government on their side to get out and vote, to make sure that government is well funded. Thanks so much for that. We have Magic once again. Thanks so much, Magic. I don't have ID. Visit the council or do it online by the 25th of the month. That's the latest date to apply. So by the 25th, you need to have applied for your ID if you don't have it. Thanks for that information, Magic. So please, people, please do go out and check that you have the right ID. Glad I should super chat Max to sing. No. No, please don't. So I want to move on to another story here. We're getting close to the end of the stream for tonight. Senior Conservatives hit out at Suella Braverman's racist rhetoric. You know, there are some Tories who believe that she's doing the wrong thing. More senior Conservatives have hit out at Suella Braverman's racist rhetoric, accusing her of undermining the party for the sake of her own leadership ambitions. Yes, I think this is what it's all about. It's about positioning herself as a future leader of the Conservative Party. So my hope is that when the Tories are trashed at the next election, they return. They will return, of course. Can't get rid of them completely, but they will return as a more moderate party. That they've this fling that they've had with the far right, with populism, will end, and they will return as a more moderate party, a pro-European party, because all of these far right people will be removed from power, removed at the next election, and a more moderate party will emerge. It'll have to stay some time in opposition, but I do hope that this is what will be the result of it. You haven't had a real moderate Conservative party since when? The early 2010s, maybe before that. $10 for Max to sing. Is that what I'm hearing? No. It's terrible. I'll have to end the stream immediately as soon as somebody says that. Anyway, goes on to say, pressure was mounting on Rishi Sunak on Thursday to intervene to protect the party's reputation. What reputation? After the Home Secretary stoked renewed anger by criticising police for confiscating a set of racist dolls displayed in an Essex pub. This guy who had these dolls was he had a pretty racist Facebook page. Let's put it that way. And he was saying, no, I'm not racist just because I have these dolls. And then, okay. Tory MPs, peers and activists have accused Braverman of inflaming racial tensions on a number of occasions over the past few months, saying that they are worried that she is now at risk of repealing the kinds of swing voters that the party is desperate to retain. Repelling the kind of swing voters that the party is desperate to retain. Well, I think they're trying to attract the type of swing voter that UKIP or the Reform Party is trying to win over. Former senior minister from Boris Johnson's government told The Guardian they believed Braverman was a real racist bigot. Okay, that's good to hear. The person said the country is not as grotesque as she makes it out to be. No, and I agree with that. Warning that the Conservative reputation on discrimination has dropped to a new low under her watch, which also gives the country a bad name. I don't know who this Tory is, but I have an inkling of who it could be. But it is, this is really toxic stuff, and it's damaging the Conservative Party. If they want to resuscitate their chances at the next election, not this one coming up, but the one after, they need to move more to the centre. Conservator, thanks so much for that super chat. God save our glorious king. Long live our noble. I'm not singing it. Thanks for that. Trolling me. The person said the country. Added that they added Sunak needs to build upon foundations we already have, stop the culture wars and create change. But his inaction shows how insincere he is in his insecure he is in his own ability. It's not. I think he's a coward. And he also has nothing to run on. That's the thing. He can't run on the economy. It's an absolute disaster. He can't run on the NHS or, I don't know, education or infrastructure or energy or building new homes or anything like this, because it's all an absolute failure. And it can't all be laid at Boris Johnson's feet or at his door or Liz Truss's. He was Chancellor for some time, so he can't get away with saying, "Oh, it's nothing to do with me." But he has nothing left. This is the thing. The Tories have only the culture wars, and that's not going to win it. People can't pay their bills. People can't pay the rent. People can't feed their families. They don't care about, whether some university allowed some right-winger in to talk or not. They don't care about statues. They don't care about flags. They don't care about the empire. They care about, can I feed my family? Sovereignty can't be eaten. Patriotism. What am I saying? Patriotism doesn't fry on the pan. Like the NHS can't pay. NHS staff can't pay the bills with claps. Sovereignty doesn't pay the bills either. Britain first, England firstest. Well said. England has England now known as Smuggler's Cove. It is because there are no checks being carried out on goods coming into the country because of Brexiteers. Like Jacob Rees-Mogg said, it's too expensive. Taking back control is too expensive, so we're not going to take back control. Isn't that wonderful? I wish a journalist would say that to him. So when you said we need to take back control, you didn't mean actually of controlling the border, right? It's too expensive to control the border. Earlier this month, the Home Secretary said grooming gangs were almost entirely made up of British Pakistani men whom she said hold cultural attitudes completely incompatible with British values, sounding exactly like somebody from UKIP or the BNP. And last November, there was an outcry after she said small boats crossing the channel amounted to an invasion of migrants. Some MPs believe Braverman's interventions are a deliberate attempt to appeal to Conservative Party members in case the Tories lose the next general election and hold another leadership contest. Yes, I believe this is the case. So at the next election, Rishi Sunak will lose and he'll be blamed. He'll go off into the distance, and you'll have a new leadership, and you'll have people like Suella Braverman stepping forward saying, I was the voice of reason in the room. Rishi Sunak didn't want to stop the boats, but I wanted to stop the boats. And the problem, I think, for the Conservatives is that the party members are completely out of touch with the country. The idea that a lot of the party members wanted Boris Johnson back. The country doesn't want Boris Johnson back. Please sing for the King Tampax Max. Sorry. Please sing for the King Tampax Max. So, for people who don't know, that Charles, he was so fascinated by Camilla that he once said that he would have liked to have been a type of well, you can see. Wonderful images come to mind, don't they? Thank you so much, Gareth. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you so much for that wonderful image that everyone now has stuck in their mind, burnt into their memory, that will never be removed. Wonderful. Yeah, I knew about it, you knew about it, but there are so many people on the chat who didn't know about that, and now their lives have been completely ruined. Thank you so much, Gareth. Oh my goodness, it's almost as bad as that story about Richard Gere and the gerbil. Even though you know it's not true, it sticks in your mind. Anyway. Oh my goodness. Okay, moving on. One final story before we're almost at the end of the stream for tonight, so I just want to finish with one final story here. Potentially a serious story, potentially maybe not.
Bring in military analyst, retired Air Vice Marshal Sean Bell now. I mean, it's just the most extraordinary story, this, Sean. And we still don't know the full extent of the damage, but certainly it has definitely caused a lot of embarrassment to the US so far. Let's just look in more detail, if we can, at what these documents look like and what potentially some of them reveal.
One of the things that's been perplexing most military analysts is how a 21-year-old with a security clearance, but relatively simple, managed to get hold of some top secret documents, then print them out. And where there's not just like printing off here or back at home, there are very complicated procedures for printing off any secret documents. Now that we've actually got photographs of the documents itself, now we can actually start to talk to us a bit more. A picture we've got here, which is a lot of the information's been blurred out quite deliberately because actually some of it's still confidential.
Right. And
although these are 2 months old, we've left a map on because we use maps regularly for broadcasting terms. But I'll draw your attention right to the top. It talks about Russia-Ukrainian Joint Staff's brief. Now, what this is at the very senior levels of the US military, the senior generals will get a daily brief from all of the ops, intelligence, logistics folks for all the key operational areas in the world. So Ukraine, potentially any areas like China, North Korea and stuff like that. This is one of the briefings that they will have been given on a daily basis, sometimes several times a day. Now, normally those briefings are given in a digital format, in other words, like a PowerPoint presentation. But most senior officers like to be able to make notes as well. So they give them a little pack of hard copy, which they can make notes, which of course should be collected at the end of the event. Now, hold on to that thought for a moment. Very difficult for a 21-year-old to get hold of the electronic version. And even if he did, why wouldn't he not share an electronic version with his mates online? Far easier if he had access to that briefing room after those seniors had left. Some of the seniors had taken out some of the pages they'd written notes on, and he was able to pick up scraps from that briefing room. He'd fold them up. You can see how the folds on this that he would then pop in his jacket pocket. And that would explain why there's a load of different unconnected documents that go back several months in an apparently random fashion. And therefore, this is probably less about him securing it digitally, more about him harvesting paper copies and sharing them with his colleagues.
Now, of course, it's been a huge breach of national security for the US, its allies, and crucially, Ukraine, which is in a live war situation. Details of this amount of air defence systems it has left, highly sensitive stuff that could really harm them operationally. What have we learned, and what does it mean?
When I first saw some of the details, I was mortified because it's about the vulnerabilities of the Ukrainians. It's how well prepared they were for their operations. But intelligence is very time sensitive. And therefore, a lot of this information was back from January in the year. And as you've quite rightly said, let's use an example of the air defence systems at Kyiv. They were
Which
saying...
are crucial right now.
They're crucial.
They're being
shorter
hit all the time.
missiles, and what are we going to do about it? But actually, if you look back, part of those documents, one of the reasons those documents are generated are to go to the international community to get them to donate more missiles. So that's not a problem anymore. What you're looking at is a part of the process from weeks, maybe months ago, that highlights a problem, and therefore that alerts the communities to correct it. And that.
Now, I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat for a moment. What is the chance that this was actually leaked intentionally? You know, to put pressure on the international community to, this is not an attempt to embarrass the United States, but to convince people that, you know, there is this difficult situation. We need more support. We need more weapons. We need more defense systems put in place, because look at the situation. It's not as good as we thought it was. Could this be the real reason behind this? Was it all about money? Could be. Red faces all around at the Pentagon.
That's one of the reasons why the US concerns, there are lots of US concerns about Ukrainian counteroffensive and lots of other things. But if you look back, all of those, to my knowledge, have now been resolved. So there's actually, whilst at face value it's worrying, in reality it's not that concerning. And
of course there's also been leaks that are potentially concerning for the Ministry of Defence here as well, revealing that UK Special Forces are working in Ukraine. What more can you tell us about this?
First of all, the UK never comments on whether the Special Forces, where they're operating, when they're operating, why they're operating. They are an elite military capability for our nation. They usually go in for a specific thing. They go out and they come out again. The MOD, interestingly, did not verify or cancel or say, no, this wasn't true or was true. What they said was a serious level of inaccuracy about the reports. Almost certainly, whatever was happening on the 1st of March, when this issue came out, almost certainly those situations do not exist today. So I don't know whether SF were there or not, but almost certainly the information out there is no longer valid, no longer credible.
There you have it. So a bit of a storm in a teacup, as most of these things are. Cthulhu, oh God. Please sing the first verse of the Stones' classic Satisfaction. Thank you so much, Cthulhu. And now I will sing, because I have been forced to do so. I have been bribed like a Tory MP. Oh my goodness. Good. I can't get no satisfaction. I can't get no satisfaction, 'cause I try, and I try, and I try. I can't get no do-do-do. I can't get no Brexit satisfaction. That's it. I can't get any Brexit satisfaction. Now everyone is gone. Thank you so much. No one wants to be on the channel anymore because of my horrible singing. You know, I'm sitting down as well. I should be standing up to get better breathing and stuff like that. So if anyone is still on the channel after that, thank you for coming on tonight. Remember to check out Sunday Roast on Sunday. And we have some wonderful guests on Sunday. And if I don't see you then, I'll see you on Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. But before we go, of course, we have our one for the road. So this is great to get this thing going so people will forget about my singing, my crowing. Enjoy.
NHS strike in years continues this week. So, Mr. Junior Doctor, it's just Doctor. Mr. Junior Doctor, do you enjoy watching people die? What? Well, by striking, you're probably killing people. Do you get off on that? No, of course not. We're actually doing this to save the NHS. Suppose somebody dies this week because of a missed appointment. You're basically smashing their head in with a hammer, aren't you? I don't think that's fair. But you think a 35% pay rise is fair? Well, it's not really a pay rise, it's more restoring the pay to levels it should have been. But I thought being a doctor was a vocation. Well, it is. In fact, it's a vocation and a privilege, and yet you want to be paid for your privilege. Isn't that a bit gauche? Look, if the government doesn't start paying junior doctors properly, they'll all keep leaving for places they can get a better quality of life, like Australia. A better quality of life? Have you seen the spiders in Australia? At least I'd be able to get an appointment with somebody who could treat me for the bites. We hear this week that one of the leaders of the strike action is actually on annual leave this week to attend a friend's wedding. Are you saying that doctors shouldn't be allowed time off? If you really believed in saving lives, you'd never go to sleep, let alone on holiday. When do you think these strikes will end? You need to talk to the government about that. Well, we did ask to speak to a minister about this, but no one was available. Typical. So instead, we sent our prettiest undercover reporter to pretend to be from a pharmaceuticals company and speak to them on the promise that they'd get £10,000 for an hour of their time. You're not recording this, are you? I have been caught out before. Can I make it clear? I would never break the rules. Just have to check what the rules are first. Is this against the rules? No? I'll take your word for it. You're sure you're not recording this? Yeah, some companies are cute with hospitality. They keep everything under £300. So, like, you could take me out to a restaurant, but as long as it doesn't cost more than £300, I don't have to declare it. What, my dinner of choice? I'd probably say a McDonald's meal deal and £290 in cash. Junior doctors, a bit like junior ministers. Nobody cares until someone dies. Now, I don't think we're exploiting their good nature. No, they're just not motivated by money in the same way. Unlike, bankers or Tory MPs who absolutely have to be paid a lot of money because we know what we're doing is morally wrong. Yeah, I'd be happy to ask a question in the House for you. Just don't fill it with jargon. I'm only the health minister. I'm not actually medically qualified. Thank God. All of that debt and training, some mug's game. More on that story later when the minister discusses the current cabinet with some surprising results. Kill, snog, snog, marry, then kill. Already snogged, so kill.
Wonderful, Matt Green. Regularly, thank you so much. Just before the end, we have one thing these leaks done is undermine trust with the US. Then again, we should have known they were spying on everyone anyway. Yes, so it's like we don't trust the US, but then they don't trust us either. So well said, Regan and Lee. Thanks so much for that. Vicky, thank you so much for thank you so much, Vicky. You're a good sport, Mike. Yeah, a good sport, but not a good singer. Thanks for that. You're very kind. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone. And Alistair, once again, Max, sing a song on the after show chat on Discord tonight. Do you all want to die? Have you not suffered enough? So we will see, Alistair, we will see. I can't promise anything. So everyone, have a great weekend. Take care, as always. And I'll see you on Sunday roast. If not, I'll see you next Tuesday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Take care. And thank you once again to everyone who came on. Thanks for smashing the like button. Thanks for the super chats. And thanks to the moderators for doing a great job. Good night.